Hi, everyone. David Aragona and Mike Beer here, taking a look at the DRF Saturday race of the day. It is the Grade 3 Virginia Derby at Colonial Downs. This one going a mile and an eighth for those 3-year-old Kentucky Derby prospects. And speaking of the Kentucky Derby, do be aware of this Road to the Derby package that we're offering at shop.drf.com. If you're somebody who likes to handicap these Kentucky Derby preps each Saturday leading up to the first Saturday in May, just buy them all in a bundle and save 37% PPs for 10 events, clock reports, betting strategies, and more. Check out more information on that at shop.drf.com. And with this being the Saturday race of the day, also be aware that on the website, you can get free past performances for this race on the race of the day page. Mike, this Virginia Derby drew a field of 10 runners, though our colleague Marcus Hirsch does report that the number 2, John Hancock, is expected to scratch from this race and instead await the Louisiana Derby 1 week later. Cox still has the number 7, Rapture, in this race, but he and all the others are going to have to get around the Bob Baffert shipper getaway car, who's got the most points of any horse coming into this race, and we'll see if he can solidify his spot in the Kentucky Derby here.
Yeah, pretty big scratch there with the 2 coming out, and it just, I guess it makes getaway car's job a little bit easier. I don't know. This is a field that's got a lot of sorting out to do, and getaway car, maybe more than anything else. He's got a lot of speed, and it just feels like maybe Baffert's shipping him into a pretty good spot here.
Let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector for this Virginia Derby, because the number 2, John Hancock, would have been a major pace presence if he were running here. He will come out of this race, so do note when you check out this pace projector on Saturday morning after scratches, it will update in the Timeform US PPs on the website to remove John Hancock and potentially change that characterization. Though, Mike, I think we're still going to see that fast pace flag showing up even after the scratch, because there's still plenty of speed in this race. American Promise wants to be forward. Rapture is showing good tactical speed, and a little surprising to see getaway cars shown as far back on the pace projector as he is, but it would be surprising if he were one that's not vying for the front end early.
Yeah, I sort of the way I looked at it, especially with the 2 coming out. I mean, the three's got plenty of speed, but I just thought getaway car was going to make the lead in here, David. They did, his first couple of route attempts at the end of last year, they did try to teach him to rate a little bit in those spots, but since then they've just been happy to let him go to the front end in his races, and he's got plenty of early gas.
Let's check out this field in program number order. And as we get into the field, make sure to like this video and also subscribe to the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel to not miss any of our future Kentucky Derby previews. Mike, the number 1 calling card is wheeling back in 2 weeks from the Gotham Stakes, where he was pretty disappointing, was single-digit odds in there, bet down to 7-1. And I think the chart callers missed a spot of trouble that he had on the far turn, because he did have to get steadied a little bit coming to the quarter pole, but I still don't think he was going to be a major factor in that race, even without the trouble. And this horse just still has a lot to prove in stakes company.
Yeah, he just hasn't been any good in his 3 most recent starts. He was impressive winning his dirt debut over state bred maidens, and he got a figure for that race. But they've run him in 3 tougher races since then, and he's been absolutely no match. I don't know. He's got a lot to prove now, David. If they wheel him back in 2 weeks here, he better take a pretty big step forward.
We can skip on over the number 2, John Hancock, who, as I said, Marcus Hirsch reporting that he will scratch from this race. So next up is the number 3, American Promise. And kind of like with calling card Mike, this horse has just been a little bit disappointing in his 2 stakes tries, though at least he was big prices in both the Southwest and the Risen Star. And it's not like he was disgraced either time. He chased some honest paces, just got a little bit tired at the end. He did prove that he can run a Beyer speed figure that makes him competitive here when he broke his maiden with that 95 Beyer at Oaklawn Park 3-back. Just got to prove he can get back to it potentially with a more competitive pace scenario.
Yeah, exactly. I because he has that figure 3 starts back, I left him open in this race. I do think he's a contender in here. I guess he ran fine in the 2 recent graded stakes tries, just races that ultimately were too tough for him. And obviously that Risen Star just came back a really, really fast race. And he just had no chance in there. I don't love him, David. I do think this is probably the kind of race where he can be competitive, and maybe he just gets the right trip this time.
I will say some might be encouraged by that very fast workout that you see showing from March 3rd, where he ran 6 furlongs and 1:11.4. I did watch a video of that work. He was under a whip to be kept up with a stablemate that was going much easier. Kind of that horse broke off ahead of him and he had to catch up, but still not the most visually impressive work. It looks a little more eye-catching on paper. The number 4, Omaha, is a horse who I think the best thing you can say about him, Mike, is that he has improved with each and every start. He's increased his Beyer speed figures with each outing, despite the fact fact that he keeps stepping up in class. And while he was no match for the winners in either of his stakes tries in New York, at least he was finishing at the end of both of those races. And, we don't see too many of these elongated route races run around one turn in this country, and Colonial Downs is one of the places where we get to see that 9 furlongs on the dirt. And sometimes with that long straightaway, the pace can really heat up on the backstretch. We see that happen at Belmont, the old Belmont Park. And maybe that would really benefit Omaha, because if others are getting tired late, at least, this guy will be finishing.
Yeah, and I think there is a chance that things get a little competitive up front for him in here too. My one thing about him, I agree with your take too, that I like the fact that he just keeps showing up and getting a little bit better each time, even though it never looks like he's going to win, or at least it hasn't looked like he's going to win either of the stakes races. And I also felt like my real problem with this race, David, as I went through the field top to bottom, was I'm not convinced that any of these horses really want to go 9 furlongs and beyond. I think Omaha probably does, and that could be to his advantage.
Yeah, it's a new Derby prep this year, the Virginia Derby, a race that used to be a turf race at a different point on the calendar, but this year offering 50 Kentucky Derby qualifying points. It will produce a Kentucky Derby starter. We'll see if Omaha can prove that he wants the distance. The number 5, Studley Do-Right, is the most experienced member of this field, making the 10th start of his career. And, Mike, he's got that one Beyer speed figure in the Nashua that I guess puts him in the fringes of being competitive in a race like this, but he's regressed since then. They went to the synthetic last time, a turfway. That experiment didn't work out. Now he's wheeling back just 3 weeks later. Just feels like they're searching for this horse's form at this point.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, listen, I respect the connections to keep pressing on here. He's obviously a horse of some ability. I'm not sure that this is ultimately going to work out for them to keep sort of pressing along on the Derby trail with this horse. To me, David, he's just not that quality. I think he's probably a little bit better going shorter than this too.
I think any way you slice it, you got to consider the number 6 getaway card, the horse to beat in this Virginia Derby. He's just accomplished more than everybody else coming in here. And yes, he's lost a number of graded stakes races, Mike, but you check out the horses that he was chasing home. Gaming, Citizen Bull, the champion from last year, Journalism, the new favorite for the Kentucky Derby. Just feels like this is the level where he belongs, this grade 3 second-tier Kentucky Derby prep. And he got another one of those last time in the Sunland Derby and was the winner. We'll take a look at the stretch run of that race, and he had to be put under some real pressure around the far turn to match the move of Caldera, and it looked like he was bound for a second place finish when that one ranged up outside of him. But I think it's a credit to Getaway Card that he was able to battle on all the way to the wire and keep his nose in front.
Yeah, it is, and they're putting distance on the rest of these horses too. Listen, he's very game here to fight back. He's going to catch a bob right at the end there to get the job done. He ran fine in there. I don't think, he necessarily showed himself to be, sort of a major talent going forward on the Derby trail. But as you mentioned, he's got some good 2-year-old form. He ran fine in that race. It feels like Caldera is a horse who at least has plenty of room to improve for Lucas too. So I don't know, man. He ran fine in there. He's the horse to beat. Again, more than anything else, I just think Baffert just shipped in and found another really good spot for him.
Yeah, you mentioned distance concerns with a few of these horses. I do think a 1 1/8 might be really stretching Getaway Card, but at this level, he might be able to get it done. The number 7, Rapture, feels like he's the other horse that's going to take a lot of money in this race, especially with the expected scratch of his stablemate, same owner and trainer, with Brad Cox now sending out this runner, with Flavien Prat keeping the mount after this maiden win that we'll take a look at last time at Oaklawn Park. And like, I didn't love the field he was beating here, but he does settle it pretty well, drawing away at the end. He had to be put under some real pressure on the turn to sort of, get to the leaders. But then once he does, he maintains those strides all the way through the wire, looking like a horse that's probably not going to mind a little bit of added ground. I just kind of wonder how good this horse really is. And I feel like he's going to be bet as if he is graded stakes quality, whereas I think he still has to prove that.
Yeah, we have the same exact take on this horse. I'm not going to be surprised when he's competitive with this field, but he's not the kind of horse I'd be looking to take a short price on. His debut was fine. He improved a little bit last time, but if I'm being honest, I'm not blown away by that maiden win. And I can't say that I just love this horse stepping right up into a stakes race, even if he's not meeting, the top 3-year-olds in this spot.
Mike, I know you've got some interest in the number 8, Authentic Gallop, another one of these horses that's kind of been steadily improving throughout his career. And talk us through his last race, because he showed some real grit in this allowance win at Oaklawn Park.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he's dead game in this race. I gave him even a couple of extra points, David, too, just for sort of keeping up close throughout in this race. He looks like he's in pretty deep water here through the stretch. He's got that rival coming up on his outside. He's in the green cap between horses there. And he looks like he's maybe going to get out finished by a couple of horses in here. He actually stays very gamely here, though, and has the best finish at the end. I thought he ran okay in this race. It was another forward move for him. The win 3 starts back when he broke his maiden, I thought that was an even better performance because that pace was even faster and he kept up close to it and kept going through the stretch. I don't know, man. I was sort of just looking around for a price in this race. I think he could be a fair price in here, and maybe he can move forward again if he falls into the right trip. And I think he's got that kind of running style.
I hear you. I was looking for prices in this race well, and I had trouble really warming up to any of them. I was probably focusing a little too much on his race 2 back, where he was setting a slow pace and just had no answer for a couple of closers that I personally don't think that much of. But you're right. He did really improve with the blinkers coming off last time in that gritty performance. The number 9 is Rendered Judgment. He's another horse coming out of the Risen Star, like American Promise, who we already talked about. And he just didn't do that much running in that spot, Mike. Yes, he was a little wide. He got pushed about 4 wide around the far turn, but had no finish through the stretch. And I go back to his gun runner. He stumbled at the start, but got a very good trip after that and still didn't have much to offer. I just wonder how good this horse is.
I agree wholeheartedly. This is the horse that I wanted to like when I started going through the race. I really wanted to make a case for him. And, just going through all of his races again, I just couldn't find the one that really gave me a lot of confidence that he was going to be able to beat a field, even a field as relatively weak as this one.
And then the real outsider in this field, literally and figuratively, is the number 10 Georgia Magic, who's going to be a big price. I think you can make the case, Mike, that his debut was a little better than that 49 buyer might suggest. The problem is he hasn't really proven that on the racetrack because he was very disappointing when they stretched out in the Jerome in his second start. And then last time got some class relief, blinkers, and Lasix went on in that allowance race, and he still didn't have a whole lot to offer. A little strange they're pressing on into a Kentucky Derby prep off that, but he might be a pace factor.
Yeah, that to me, the most interesting thing about him is that they're running him here because I just don't see it. I don't. Maybe that's a good sign for him, David, and maybe they'll just get really aggressive with him in this race and see what happens. But I couldn't make him.
Let's throw up our picks for this Grade 3 Virginia Derby, and I'm going to go with the closer, Omaha. He really does need this race to come apart, but we talked about all the speed that's drawn in the outside part of the starting gate. I think it's possible that these horses could be really tired at the end, and I know that at least he's going to be finishing, and he should be a decent enough price. Mike, you're going to go with a horse at a similar price, the number 8 Authentic Gallop.
Yeah, I had to sort of have the same takeaway you did. I just felt like there was a chance to get competitive up front here. I don't really think any of these horses necessarily want to go this far. Maybe Authentic Gallop falls into a trip here. I'll get the jump on your horse and see if he can stay.
4-6-3-7 for me and 8-6-4-3 for Mike in the DRF Saturday race of the day at the Grade 3 Virginia Derby. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.